I want to turn to Iran now. The US has imposed sanctions on 7 Iranian officials, including the Interior Minister, in response to the crackdown on protests triggered by the death of Mahsa Amini in the custody of the morality police. That's almost 3 weeks ago now. An Iranian human rights group said that more than 150 protesters have been killed and thousands more arrested. High school pupils have recently been joining the demonstrations, like this one. You see this one in Quds, which is in the west of Tehran, of that province. But while these protests have been posted on social media accounts, there has been little to no footage of them on state-controlled media outlets. Well, for more, let's go live now to Barry Sadid from BBC Monitoring. Great to have you with us, Barry. I suppose I should really start with what we're hearing this morning, or really just in the past hour or so, from Iran, that let me just read it for our viewers that haven't seen it yet, that the Iranian officials claim that Mahsa Amini's death was not caused by a blow to the head, but that her collapse while being detained by the police was due to underlying medical conditions. This report that has just been published in the last hour or so. What do you think the reaction to that will be?
Hi, well, thanks for having me on. I think that report released by the Iranian government is part of a broader attempt by the Iranian establishment to really distance themselves from any responsibility for the several deaths of young women that have been reportedly caused by the government. And I think the reaction will overall be disbelief. I think it's probably at this point too late. It's not the first attempt by the Iranian government so far. We've seen them bring out several family members of both Mahsa Amini and several of the young women who have been killed so far in the protests, basically getting them to interview and saying that the government or the police weren't actually responsible. But I don't really think it will have, at this point in the protest, any kind of real impact.
Well, let's talk about that. You know, we are seeing, particularly on social media, we're just showing some of the pictures there of girls, young women out and protesting. Are Iranians seeing any of that within the country?
I think not if they're watching state media. If they're watching state media, they'll see this digest of kind of government rallies, occasional clips of the protest, but emphasizing the kind of more violent aspects and even the sexual harassment of women within the protest. But I think one thing notable about these protests is the incredible presence it has online. I think anyone would have probably seen the hashtag Mahsa Amini or Iranian protests over the past few days, and Iranians will be consuming these protests via Twitter, Telegram, and any kind of means of social media that they'll be using.
And do they need like a VPN or something to view them? Do they need to kind of work around the system that's there, or is it freely available?
I think, yeah, exactly. They'll need a VPN or something called a filter break. A lot of these social media websites, like Telegram, like Twitter, for example, are filtered in Iran. But there's a lot of means of getting around that. I think what we've seen, the difference between these protests and the 2019 protests, is that although the Iranian government has attempted to limit internet access partially successfully, it hasn't been as successful as it was during the previous wave of protests in 2019.
So it's different in that particular way as well. And the story with the protests today, how does it feel?
The protest today, well, it's basically unabated. It's kind of spread to universities. It's even spread, as you saw in your report before, to schools. And I think that's kind of put the government on a kind of uncertain footing. I think there's no real way to deal with a protest that's kind of being led by schoolgirls. And in terms of where the protests will progress from here, I think it's a dangerous point for the government, because any kind of crackdown would lead to more deaths, more martyrs, more icons for the movement, and the possible spread of the protests to further provinces.
Barry Sadid, thanks so much for joining us.